if I asked you to add these two buttons side by side before this Divi 5 Flexbox update, it was almost impossible. You'd had to go in and put some CSS code in order for you to do something as basic as adding these two buttons side by side. But now, with the Divi 5 Flexbox update, you're able to design complex layouts. Let me just show you quickly how you would be able to do this. So you'd come into this, into the row settings here, you'd go into the column, and then you'd go into design, layout, and then all you have to do is to change your direction, just like that. And now your buttons are side by side. Now there's further adjustments that you can do here. And that is, if you wanted to place the buttons, with space around them, you'd do that. If you want them, space between, like on extreme ends, that's you. If you want them all towards one side. Now, all this was not possible without this latest update. So in this video, I'm going to show you everything that you need to know about Divi 5 Flexbox. So by the end of this video, you're going to pretty much master how to use Flexbox. Now, before I get started, if you haven't joined the Divi community yet, head over to diviuniversity.com. The link to that is in the video description below. It's a community of Divi users. We share ideas, layouts, courses, and so on. It's absolutely free right now, so go ahead and sign up. All right, so now that we've established that Flexbox is very, very powerful, let's go ahead and find out how it actually works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this over here to the top so I can show you exactly how it works. So when it comes to Flexbox, you have to think of two things: alignment and direction. That's all you need to think about. Alignment and direction. So that in a nutshell is Flexbox. All right, so what do we mean by that? If we come over here to section settings, what you need to do to find these controls, the Flexbox controls, is after you've clicked on, let's say, the section in this case, you'd come over here to design, layout. So that is where it is. So on this layout style, it can either be in block or in Flexbox. So right now we're focusing on Flexbox. Now remember, I say direction. So at the moment, our direction is going downwards. So if I had two items in here, I could make them go sideways. Okay. But for example, in this case, I only have one item. So if we wanted to add two items, let's just duplicate this so you can see. So now I have two rows. Okay. If I want them side by side, what do? Remember, direction. So let's have them going this way towards the right. Boom. And now they're side by side. Okay, it's as simple as that. If you want them to reverse, you do that. Now, right now, you can't see if it's reversed, but in order for me to show you that, let's do this. Okay, so now we have to go back and see if this works. So at the moment, our direction here is towards the right. So if we want to reverse this, so what we're reversing here is these two main items in the section. If we click here, it changes direction. So you can see this one here with the bottom color is now on the left. But if I change the direction like that, it's now on the right. So this is how you change direction. So we can either have them like this, one on top of the other. That's column. We can also reverse these. So if you want the bottom one on the top, you do that. And now the bottom one is on the top. Okay. Now we also have an option here to justify this content. So we can either center it. So now it is bang in the center. Okay. Or we can have it all at the top. Okay. Or we can have it all spaced out. But right now we can't really see it because of the layout tab that I have. But anyway, this is how it works. I will be showing you in a moment how this actually works. All right. So let's get rid of this row right here. Next, what we're going to do is to head over now into our rows. Now the rows also have the same layout and alignment settings. So if I click here in rows, notice what happens. I'm going to go to design, layout, and we have the same thing. Right now it's facing downwards. It can go this way, it can go that way, but at the moment nothing is really happening in here. Do you know why? because I don't have enough items inside the row for you to see it. So how do we know which is our row? Well, we have this color right here. This is our row. Okay, so I've separated them with color. So if I wanted to have 2 items in this row, what do I need to do? I click here on the row settings, and then I duplicate the columns. So now we have 2 columns in this row. So this part here is the row, and we have these 2 columns. And how do you know we have 2 columns? If you take a look here, these are the 2 columns. So if I delete it, it's gone. If I duplicate it, now we have it. Okay. So again, same thing. If we want to do the alignment and direction, you click on the row settings, and then you go into design, and then now you can column. Now it's one on top of the other. You see that? We can reverse them as well. So the bottom one goes on the top. We can also do rows, and then we can reverse them. So this is now left to right and right to left. And notice that we also have the justify content over here as well. So we can space it out evenly. We can, do it this way. We can center it. We can do all sorts of things here. Okay. We can also do it in such a way that it's at the top. Now let's head over into the actual columns. So this column here, you can see this lighter gray is the column. Okay, so in this column itself, we also have our own controls. Now check this out. If I go back to my content here and I go into the first column, which is this one, right? I also have my own controls. So if I click on design layout, that means right now it's set to direction downwards. I can now do that, and look at that. Now I've changed the direction. It's now, instead of going down, it's going sideways. And you can see the difference if you compare these two here. Okay, so now it's going sideways. We are also able to do a few things like we can change the direction. So now this one here, which says your content goes here, is now starting from the right going left. If I change it like this, notice that now it's on the left and everything's going towards the right. If I reverse, you notice now everything is, this one here is on the bottom. And if I do that, now it's on the top. But keep an eye on why it's only this one here that's changing. It's because that's the one I selected when I chose the second column. Okay. Now, if you want me to perhaps maybe go in and make the color a bit darker, we could do that so that you can actually see exactly what is going on. So you can see now the columns are different. Okay, so these are the 2 separate columns. Okay, so now that we have the columns and everything all working, there is also another level that you can go in and customize your designs, and this is by using groups. So why don't we add a group in here, because now this layout is going to be very exciting. Okay, so let's delete this and let's add a group, and in this group we are going to add let's add text and a button. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add text, and oops, the text color here is not visible. Let's click in here and let's change our text color. So I'm using SiteKrafter here, so it just makes it easier for me to go in and make a lot of changes. So I'm going to say text, and I'm going to say gray. Let's go with gray 200. Okay, so that's my text right there. So in here, and we know it's a group because this is my group settings, we are also going to add a button. Okay. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add our button. So at this moment, our button here, in fact, let me choose a button that is much better. So let's go with, let's find, okay. Now it's visible. We've got the outline. So we have these 2 items. So with this layout, if you wanted the button on the side, on the right or on the left, you'd go into the group settings, and remember direction. Okay, so you click on the group settings, and then you'd come over here to design, layout, and now At the moment, we can see here that it's column and it's pointing down. So what we need now is row like that. Now, do you see that? Now they're side by side. I mean, that was very, very easy to achieve. Okay, look at that. Now it's side by side. And what I can do now is I can put space around. I can space evenly. I can start from the left and so on. Okay, I can even stretch. But right now we can't see a lot of these settings because we're in a tight space. But I can center this button as well, or I can leave it at the top. It's pretty much up to me how I want to have it. So for this group here, why don't we just add, a bit of styling so at least we know what we are doing. So I'm going to go to advanced and we're going to add a background here. So I'm going to say BG and the background, let's go with our primary color. So let's go with our secondary color. So we're going to go with accent and we're going to say accent 200. Okay. Maybe that's not a good idea. Let's go accent 600. Or maybe even 800. Okay, 800 is fine. And we're also going to add a bit of padding inside. So we're going to say PAD-M for medium. Okay, so this is our group. Okay. Now, in this group, if we wanted to make sure that everything that we have in here is a specific size, here's what we can do as well. If I click here on my module settings, I can go into design. And then I can go into sizing. So I can say, okay, you know what? I want to go in and set this to 50%. Now you notice that this text is now taking up 50%. So these settings just makes us able to design layouts that are more exciting and more stylish. Okay. So here's what we can do here. We can go in and we can grow to fill like that. And for our button here, we can also go in and change the size if we wanted to. But we have a lot of settings that we can play around with over here. Okay. So here's our alignments. If we need to do our alignment. In fact, let me go back in here. Let's go to our layout. And you need to make sure you're on the right item. So now we can center the button. Do you see that? Or we can make it go to the bottom or right at the top. Okay, so these are the settings that we can do. So at this point, you're probably thinking, well, but Mac, this doesn't look very exciting. How do you apply this type of design or Flexbox in day-to-day use? I mean, how would you do this? Okay, so let's get rid of all of this and let's try and design something which is totally different. Okay, so we are going to start from scratch. Okay, so let's head over here and let's create our columns. But before I create our columns, I want you to notice something very interesting. We also have our multi-column grids here. So if you wanted a layout that follows some sort of a grid, you can just go ahead and choose your grid right here. And then you can start adding all your content. So let's say, for example, in this top one here, you want to have a bit of text. And then on here, you want to have a call to action. And then on this one here, you want to add, let's say a blurb. And then on this one here, you want to add, say, an email opt-in. Okay. So you can see here that we've quickly gone in and used this layout. So if we did that, you start to notice that we would need to go in and make further adjustments to make sure that our views look really nice. Of course, in this case here, because these are pre-made layouts, they are already pretty much, good. Okay, so that's the example of other layouts that you may want to choose. But let's build our layout from scratch so you can see exactly how to achieve this. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with an equal column. And in here, we're going to add a heading. So we're pretending now that we're designing our website. So we'd come over here and we need to center this text. So we're going to come over here to our heading text and center it. Okay. Next, we're going to add a text description like that. And with that text description, we need to center it as well. So we're going to come over here to text, and then we're going to center it. Okay. Finally, we're going to need two buttons. Now, how are we going to do two buttons? Now, remember what I did initially? We added a row, but in this case, we can just add a group. That would, that would work as well. So we can say button like that. And for our button here, I'm just going to change my presets by coming over here, and we're going to go dark. Okay, excellent. And we need two of these buttons here, so I'm going to duplicate that. Okay. Next, this is where Flexbox is kicking in. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to make sure that in my group design tab, my layout here is set to row. But here's the thing. The buttons are all the way over to the left, and that's not what we want. And this is what we have at the moment. So I want them close to the center. Now look at that. Our design is starting to take shape now. Like I said in the beginning, you would need to add CSS code in order for you to just achieve something as basic as that. Okay, so our next step here is to add, let's say, we're going to add two columns. Okay, so in this column here, we want to add, let's say, an image. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to click in here, and let's choose our image. We're going to go with, let's go with this one here. Okay, so that's our image. Over here now to the right, we want to add a few things. Okay, so we want, let's say, a heading. So let's go ahead and do that. And below that heading, we want to have description text. So let's go ahead and add a text module. Okay, now we want to add 3 images in here. So we're going to now click on this plus button here. We're going to go to group, and then we're going to add images. Okay, so let's go ahead and search for our image. Right, so with our image selected here, it's in its own group, as you can see. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and choose our image. So my first image is going to be this one here. I want to add that. Okay, so I want to duplicate this twice. Okay, but now I want these 2 images side by side. Okay, how do I do that? Well, I'm going to come over here into group settings. I'm going to go into design, layout, and now I can go like that. And now my 2 images are side by side. Okay, so I can go further and say, okay, you know what? Below this image here, I want to have a call to action. Okay, so we're going to go in. Now we can add a button just below the image. Oops, do you see what happened there? Because I am still in my group settings. If I add an item, it's going to go into that direction. Look at this. Okay, it's because we have that direction. If I were to do that, pretty much it's the same image, but I am rotating these 2. So let's go ahead and delete this button here. So if we wanted to add an image below that, you would come over here and add the image. But I want to do something a bit more complex. Okay, but before we do that, let's just add our image in here, so at least we can see, what it looks like. How about that? Okay, I know they're not the same size, but you can see that I was able to just go in quickly and add these 2 images, and I have a complex layout already. Okay, now let's try something different. Okay, let's get rid of this. Okay, we're going to click on this plus button here. Let's add an image. So we're going to go to a single column. So what we're going to do in here is, first of all, add an image. But what we want to do is we want to add a sort of like a design to this. Okay, so to achieve that, we're going to add another module here. So this is going to be, in fact, let's add a group. Okay, And in this group, we're going to add a few items. So let's add a number counter. Okay, so we have our number counter here. We could have a few of them. So we have 3. But what we're going to do now is I don't want to have these 3 stacked up like this as a column. I want it side by side. So I'm going to come over here, go into my design here. We're going to go into our layout and we're going to flip it like that. Oops, that didn't work. And let's go back into our design. Oh, you know what happened here? I put 2 groups. So you have to be really careful when you do this. Okay, there we go. All right, so now I have my layout like this. But you know what? It's going to be very confusing because I have this group and I also have this group. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to delete that. Okay, all right. So with our layout now, let's go ahead and, in fact, let's do it on a section. I think it's easier that way. We're going to add a single column here, and behind this column, we're going to have a huge image. So we're going to come over here to our background, click on this little icon, and let's choose our image. And we're going to go with, which one should you go with? Okay, let's go with this one. Okay, I know it's boring, but it's okay. We could just try that. All right, so it's time now to start adding all our content. So what we're going to do is we are going to give this a bit of height. So we're going to come over here to our section settings, and then we're going to go into design. And what we need here is sizing. And for our heights, we're going to go with, let's go with 60 VH. Let's see what that looks like for now. Okay, so we see that our row here is stuck all the way at the top, but that may be maybe not the ideal place, but it's okay because we are going to add our content in here. So we're going to start off with, let's say, a number counter like that. But of course, you know, before you start designing, you have to have an idea of, you know, what you're going to be designing before you actually do it. Okay. So that's 3 of them that I've just added in here. So I'm now going to go into my row settings. I'm going to go into my column, design, and now I can go into my layout and make sure that they're all what? They're all in a row. Okay, so with that now, I can now start stylizing this. Okay, so I'm going to go in here in my main row. I'm just going to add a bit of padding around it and make it a bit darker. Okay, so we're going to come over here to CSS ID and classes, and I'm going to say BG gray. Okay, for my gray color, I'm going to go with 800. Okay, because I really want this to, to stand out. Okay, should I do 800? Or I can do transparency. I can do white and then add transparency. All right, so with that, we are going to go to design and let's go to our background. I think that's what we need. Okay, so in our background here, we're going to choose white and then we're just going to add a bit of transparency like that. Okay, so now that we have our transparency, ideally we want our design to be, a bit unique, a bit different. So let's add another row. Okay, but in this row, we're going to add, let's say, text module. Okay. Okay, so we have our 2 rows now. If we now go into our section settings, guess what we can do? We can literally go in design, layout, and choose how we want to lay out these 2 items. So first of all, I'm going to reverse this because I want my text here to be on the top, and then I can do space between. So I'm not sure if you saw that, but when I did space between, this text now has come all the way to the top and this has come all the way to the bottom. So I can do that. You can see that has changed, but I want space between. So now you can further stylize this. Okay, so you can go in here and let's say in your row, you want things a bit, a bit centered. So we could do space between. And now we have our, our stats. And while we're at it, we're going to come over here and add some padding to our advanced tab. So we're going to say PAD-L. Okay. So now you can see we have nice padding around our design. Okay. So with that now, you're probably thinking, well, what's the heading going to be? So let's go in and add something. So let's just pretend this is going to be our main heading. So we're going to set this to maybe heading 1. We're going to change the color. So I'm just going to do it quickly in here. Okay, so we're going to go heading text, and we're just going to go with the white. Okay, so that's going to be our color. So remember, we're working on our section right here. So we're going to come back and let's increase the section size here. So we're going to go to spacing. No, sizing. And we set it at 60. How about we try 80? Okay, so things are getting interesting now. So we have a bit more real estate for our image here. But my point is, if we go in here, we can center this, and that becomes our main heading. I can increase the size if I need to. In fact, if I use my custom text here, in fact, let's add my text module. So I'm going to do my custom heading by coming over here. So I'm going to say heading-L, and you can see now it's nice and big. And we are going to also say text. Let's go gray 100. All right, so now we have our text, and then we can say text center as well, like that. Now it's centered. So our layout now has space between our items. In fact, we don't need that anymore. We can get rid of that. So these are different ways that you can use, Flexbox in your design. We can start creating, complex layouts. And these layouts here can be, very, very exciting. So let's just do a quick preview of this. I know it's not one of the best designs or one of the best ways to showcase this, but I mean, you can see that, it looks okay. So this could be, maybe you want to showcase a car, and the car needs to have the stats over here on the bottom. Why don't we look for an image of a car? Let's go to pixels. Oops. Okay, so let's search for a car and see what we can get here. Okay, this BMW looks cool. Let's go ahead and download that. 1920. I think that would be a good size. All right, great. It's downloaded. So let's come back over here into our design. Go to our background. And let's change the image. Upload file. And I know my file is in the downloads folder here. I'm going to double click on that. And let's upload. Okay. So with this now, this is where you can further tweak this. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to try and come up with, something, a bit more exciting. So let's go back in. But remember, if you are designing this, these are the sort of tweaks that you need to go in and do in order for you to have your design to look the way you want. Okay, so I think I added my color in the row settings. All right, so in my row settings here, I'm going to go into my background, and this time I want to reverse this. I want to go with something really dark like that. Okay, and with that now, I'm going to go in and change the colors. So we're going to say 1150. Instead of having percentage, here we're going to say horsepower. Like that. So in order for our text to become visible, we're going to go in and customize it. Okay, so for our title, for our text here, it says dark. Let's change this to light. And now you can see it says horsepower. I'm going to delete that, duplicate this a few times. So now I can add all my stats for my car right here on the bottom. If you don't need that, you can get rid of that easily. And with that, we can add some rounded corners if we want to. So we're going to go to border, just a little bit. Okay, save. So now when we preview this, it's now a different design. We have all our stats here. I think this would look better if it's white because we need a bit more contrast. So let's go back and fix this. So I'm going to go back to my row settings, background, and let's increase our contrast a little bit like that. Okay, so in our design here, I'm going to go in and change the text, the number text. Okay, so we're going to go like that. Okay, so now we have our stats. Okay, so here we have 1150 horsepower. Here we can say in the elements here, let's remove the percent. And then we're going to say this has done 1,000 miles. And we can also change this percentage into that. Okay. So we were able to position this using Flexbox. Okay, so let's go ahead now and save this and do a quick preview. Okay, so there we go. We now have our stats and we're able to achieve this using Flexbox. So at this stage, you're probably thinking, okay, so what happens if we want to have our layout look great in mobile devices? Well, let's go ahead and fix that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add, a bit of something in here. So let's go ahead and add another layout. And this layout is going to have text modules. Okay, so we have our text modules here. I'm going to go in here quickly, go into our column, and then in our column here, we're going to have our layout as row. Okay, so now you can see everything is in a row, looking great. So if we have everything in a row, does that mean everything looks great in mobile devices? Not necessarily. If you see here, it's a bit, not good. Okay, so what you can do while you're in this mode, you can actually change the direction. So for example, in this case, I can go like this, and just by doing that, I was able to go in and change the direction of how I want things to look in a mobile device. So it just makes things much, much easier if you are working with Flexbox. So here as well, if you wanted to change the direction, I can just go like that. And now we have columns. So at any given point, if you want to see what it looks like, this will automatically change based on your layout. So let us go ahead and inspect this. In fact, let's refresh this first and then let's inspect it. Okay, now I want you to watch these 4 items because that's what we went in and fixed. Okay, so if we do that, notice that it changed. Boom, it changed and then it maintains that. So what you have to remember here is direction. So at any given point, if you want to go in and make any changes, just make sure that you're deciding how things look based on direction. So in a nutshell, as you can see, I'm sure you can agree that, there's so many other ways that we can go in and play around with how a layout may look. Now, you can design amazing cards even with with this Flexbox. Now, let me show you quickly how you'd be able to do that. All right, so to create a card, let's use this section right here. Okay, so we are going to, okay, let's do it over here. So we're going to click here on this plus button. Okay, we're going to go into group because I would prefer to have this in a group. So I'm going to go image. Okay. And all this is in this group, by the way. In fact, let's get rid of this. We don't need that. Okay, so we have our group here. So in this image, below this image, we're going to have some text like that. And now with this text within this group, okay, we're going to come over here to the bottom, okay, of our module here like that. And we are going to add another group. And in this group, we're going to add two elements. We are going to add social media. Okay, our social media buttons here. And we're also going to add something else. So we're going to duplicate this. What should we add? Should we add a button? Yeah, maybe. Let's add a button. Okay. So we have our button here, but the way we have our button here is not cool. I want to come over here and change it. So we're going to go with this dark one. Okay. All right. So we don't need that. So to style this now, we're going to go in and add our image. So we're going to come over here, add our image, and then we're going to click on upload image. Okay. So now we have our image looking all good. So now let's start styling this. So we're going to go in here in our main group settings. Okay, so we're going to go to advanced, and first of all we're going to add padding, and we're going to go with medium, and we're also going to add a background color. So we're going to say BG gray. So let's go with gray 100 or gray 200. Okay, so that's our main card here. So we remember we also have our group in here. So we're going to select this group, and then we're going to come over here to design layout. So right now we are in column mode. We want to change that and also have these side by side. Okay, so it's spaced out. So we have our call to action button here, and we have our social media icons here. So we're going to come over here and let's just add a few. So let's change this one here to, let's say, what should we change it to? Maybe YouTube. Okay, great. So now we have our button here. Now, of course, I could go in and customize this button, make it smaller. Let's see if we have a small one. Do we have a small button here? Yes. Okay, great. I think I like that. So with this layout now, I can also go in here and add a bit of padding. So we're going to go advanced, and then we're going to say PAD medium. Will that work, or small? Let's go small. Okay, I think small works. So just like that, I was able to go in and create a card that looks pretty awesome. Well, in my opinion. So if you wanted to add a heading here, we can go in and add a heading. So let's go ahead and put, let's say, heading 4. Can we make it bold? So let's find our heading 4 first. So we're going to go regular, bold. Okay. But I don't like the font. But anyway, for the sake of this tutorial, you can see I was able to put things, side by side here. And I know it's a small thing, but like I said before, it would be quite difficult to do this if we didn't have this new Flexbox update. So I think I've given you a few examples here that we can use Flexbox. Go ahead and start creating amazing layouts and amazing design layouts as well. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments box below. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.